Right, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to this In Conversation series hosted by the Global Compact Network Pakistan. This is our 14th In Conversation that we're having today as part of our journey across all 17 of the SDGs. Alhamdulillah, it's been an absolutely amazing time to listen to stories, the journey that sustainability champions are taking through their businesses, and what they're doing to advance the SDGs in Pakistan as well. Today we have some broad, diverse, across the board representations. We have Dr. Asif Inam from Maritime Sciences BUK, Haya Iqbal, who's Director Artistic Fabric Mills, and Ahmed Shayan, who's Sustainability Lead at Engro Foundation. So Assalamu alaikum and welcome to you. Thank you for joining us today. For anyone that wants to find out a little bit about the profile of these guests today, you can do so by finding them on LinkedIn and connecting them directly. For those of you listening in live and later on the recording, if you want to post social media, whatever it is that we do in terms of communication these days, then don't forget the following hashtags: Uniting Business, Leave No One Behind, and SDG Me. So today's conversation is really a casual conversation as ever. It's an insight into our guests' journeys and what they're doing to advance, accelerate, and elevate sustainability within their organizations, but also within their communities as well. So stakeholders, supply chains, and people that they work with as well. We're going to start off with some just very broad kind of holistic overview of what it is that motivates our guests. And if anyone who's listening in right now has got some questions that they want to ask, you can please just add them in the comments chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. And then Nuzat will pick those up and I'll try and frame them into our conversation as well. Chile. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Absolute pleasure to have you on board. I'm really excited about this one because it's such an interesting topic area that I don't think it's given its due justice for conversation. So it'll be interesting to see how this one works out today as well. So the first kind of reference point I really take is trying to understand a little bit about what motivates you in terms of sustainability. Obviously, a few of you have sustainability within their job function, but there must be some kind of passion or motivation from a personal level perspective to be advancing sustainability in the area that you're working in, but also, you know, why is it that you're so excited about what you're doing to move that forward? Haya, if I can start with you, perhaps, if you could just share just a few points, highlight what motivates you to drive sustainability forward within your organization, but also as an individual as well. You know, you give me important cheese and, you know, what's motivating you so we can try and draw from that some inspiration. And for those people that listen in now and later, it can be a bit of a catalyst to say, oh, that's how I feel as well. So yeah, over to you.
Sure. So growing up in Karachi, I feel like, you know, we've all spent a significant amount of time like at the beach or like by the coast. It's a privilege that we have that the rest of the country doesn't. And, you know, my father's an avid angler, so I actually spent a lot of time either at sea or at the beach growing up. And I have personally seen in my lifetime the way that our marine life, our coast has been destroyed over the years. I remember I used to go sailing at Marina Club, and after our class, we would like in the water, and even at that point, it was considered unsafe because of all the toxins and the waste that was disposed of into the sea from the nearby industrial areas. So, you know, just kind of like seeing that progression, it's really unfortunate to see because we have about over 1,000 kilometers of coastline, and we are completely neglecting it. It's unfortunate to see that there's so much potential for tourism, for sustainable tourism, There's so much potential for the fisheries, for the fishermen in our country, in our region. And just due to neglect, kind of lack of awareness, I think it's lack of awareness that we are killing our coastlines. So I feel very passionate about it, like personally, because I have kind of seen it. I have seen the passion. And it's unfortunate that like our current generation or the future generations aren't going to kind of experience or have those experiences that we have had growing up. And as an organization, AFM is kind of like a leader in sustainable innovation on every level, whether it be environmental, the oceans. We try to do our part in kind of rectifying some of the mistakes that we as an organization have also made in the past. This is a very like recent kind of awareness that has come to us. A lot of it is pushed from a global aspect from our customers, but it's something that we have taken positively over the past couple of years, and we have made effective changes, whether that be like in the technology that we're using, the chemicals, or just providing awareness to our own workers and supply chain, and only working with those that are kind of working responsibly towards these goals.
Right. So you saw a personal kind of benefit growing up, like you said, fishing with your father. You saw personal benefit of having clean water, safe water, a great environment. And then obviously as you've entered into the workspace and you had the opportunity to perhaps influence, that's an amazing inspirational story for anyone who has a position of influence within a company to try and sort of learn from that. Shayan, what's been your journey? What's been your motivation in advancing the SDGs? And, is this one that really hits home, or do we underplay this one?
Thank you. So I think my journey probably started way back when, as students, young students, primary school students, we used to hear about the ozone layer and how it was depleting and how that is causing harm to people and environment. And I think that was my first kind of awareness of what climate change and man-made activities in leading to environmental damage looks like. And I think that was like the early seeds of becoming more aware of it and also becoming a lot more educated about the issues. And I think fast forward 20 plus years, you were in a situation where ironically the ozone layer has started repairing because there was some monumental global level actions that were taken at the time. And today we are now dealing with multiple crises in terms of the environment, and there doesn't seem to be a global consensus on how to move forward. So I think for me, there isn't as I would say like inspiration, but it's more about a survival instinct. You need to do it to survive, to have a semblance of normal environment for the next generations that are to come. And I think I'm driven by that, the knowledge that it's now or never. It may already be too late, but at least it's not irreversible at this point in time. But let's say another 10, 15 years, it is going to become irreversible. So I think that is what drives me, and that is what I'm bringing to work every day as well. Yeah.
So clearly, again, like Haya, you've drawn from your experiences or adventures in your youth and in your primary years, and then when you've become, you've entered the workplace, you've seen an opportunity to sort of present that in a different light and position of influence, perhaps as well. Amazing. I'm already seeing some chatter online as well. इसके बारे में, Dr. Sab, आपका क्या ख्याल है इसमें? What's been your motivation? Obviously, you come from a slightly different perspective because you obviously mature in years like myself, so we have a slightly longer runway. What's been your motivation to sort of really kind of give this its due credence and stay motivated as well? I think that's the key thing.
Oh, actually, I started my career as an oceanographer in 1984, and I served the National Institute of Oceanography Pakistan for more than 35 years. And I have seen a continuous deterioration in ocean health. And as far as my motivation regarding the topic is, I am extremely concerned about the consequences of the decade of the ocean sciences for sustainable development, which is from 2021-2030, because all the coastal states are required to take some serious measures to improve the overall health condition of the ocean. But my concern is that they have not yet spelled it out anything related to the consequences. But my logical thinking is that the coastal states who fail to do some improvement in the overall health of their coastal waters, they might have to face some serious measures, including some restrictions on the maritime shipping, because if the water is polluted and if it is full of plastic debris, then that floating debris would be a risky thing for the shipping industry. And again, as one of the area is related to the restoration of biodiversity. And the recent survey conducted by the government of Pakistan indicates that we have already destroyed the biodiversity, and almost 80% of the valuable fish are no more there. So we might be asked to wait till the fish stock recovers from the present situation. And there are a number of other concerns. Since we are polluting, we are discharging effluents, and one of the figures quoted by European Union in 2019 is that we are discharging about 417 to 425 million gallon per day of industrial and domestic effluents. But that is huge. But my serious concern is on these numbers, because no one knows. Since I spent more than 35 years in the maritime sector, I don't know who collected that figure and how that figure was. One of the map published by the European Union, map of Karachi, where all the nalas are heading conveniently towards the ocean. So, and I haven't seen a single monitoring unit which is gauging the amount of water being discharged. And if you go to the Korangi, and you can see there is free flow of industrial effluents, and you can see the different smell and of chemicals. So things are extremely horrible. And though we have declared Astola as one of the marine protected area, but again, I am a bit concerned about declaring any area as marine protected area, because we need to do some homework before recommending any area as marine protected area. And since 5 or more years have already passed after declaring that area, did we undertake any study to see if declaring that particular area as marine protected area help in any sense? So there are so many areas where I am extremely concerned. And one of the, as I mentioned about the discharge of water, we also conveniently say that that much of solid waste is being discharged. But do we, a country like Pakistan, where we don't have even population data, reliable population data, how can we assume that we can show that how much waste is being discharged? So we need to correct a lot of areas before the end of 2030.
Inshallah. Dr. Sabit, I take 2 points from what you mentioned. Obviously, I was keen to learn about your motivations. I think they're very, very apparent and very clear. You mentioned about data. So the Global Compact Network Pakistan is working with the government of Pakistan and our colleagues in New York to collect data. It's called a voluntary national review. This is about data against all of the sustainable development goals. And inshallah, that's kicking off in a few weeks. It's an annual collection of data. So for people listening, and this is absolutely perfect time for you to be involved with your company. So we're sending out a survey, very simple. You just respond accordingly in terms of what your company is doing. So look out for the email regarding that as well. And inshallah, then that's given us feedback as a country level to the United Nations, and it's presented at the high level political forum in July, and then later on at the General Assembly. So it's absolutely imperative that we get our data metrics right. So I completely agree with you. But also you mentioned about healthy oceans. So I just want to bring it now forward to actually what is Goal 14? What is life underwater actually about? So it's about conserving and sustainably using the oceans, the seas, marine resources. And we talk about healthy oceans and seas are essential to our existence. I mean, you've talked about some data. Just as a statistic, the oceans cover 70% of our planet, and we rely on them for food, for energy, and obviously for water as well. It's very clear, as you've all highlighted through your responses and through your kind of stories, that we've done tremendous damage to these precious resources. And obviously we need to do a lot more to protect them. Eliminating pollution, as you mentioned, and Haya gave some examples that, of the work that you're doing in your organization to sort of manage chemical disbursement and how to manage the other aspects of that as well. We need to look at overfishing, but also we have individual responsibilities as well. And we'll come to some of what take action we can do and some of the things that we should be doing to reduce marine pollution, for example, or what can be done to protect and restore the ecosystems. But if we just move on slightly to what have been the milestones in your organization. So we talk from a company perspective, perhaps. And then that will lead on to a second kind of point, and that is, how have you influenced upwards to get your senior management or your colleagues to buy into doing something? So Haya, if I come back to you, if you could just maybe give me 2 milestones that your organization has achieved in advancing this particular goal, so life underwater. What is it that has been a major success? And as a result of that success, what do you think is a next action that you need to take to really elevate that particular success? So, whatever that may be, however little or however large, it's a milestone. And then, we'll work around again. And then I want to open it up to a kind of conversation amongst ourselves about what we think we could do. So, Haya, your thoughts.
Sure. So like I said, as an organization, we focus a lot on our sustainable kind of initiatives. And the way that we go about it is that we break it down into kind of like our corporate responsibility and then also towards our process and our product. I think two of the biggest like milestones that we have had on our corporate responsibility spectrum is that in 2018, we planted 27,000 mangroves in collaboration with WWF, Pakistan, along the coastline of Karachi. I think that was a major milestone for us in furthering this particular goal. And apart from that, again, with WWF, we have also collaborated on a Green Innovation Challenge where we worked with, or it was a competition for social entrepreneurs to kind of come up with ideas and feature them in a competition to reduce or eliminate plastic waste in Pakistan. So I feel like those are two of the major things that we've done directly, worked with organizations who are doing work in this area, in this field, to create real change. Apart from this, on a more like product and kind of process focused area, we consistently work on making our processes more sustainable. So this includes our ETP plants. We have collectively a capacity of over 1 million gallons to treat wastewater as a company. So across the board, from our spinning, fabric, and garment kind of effluent. And apart from this, we are working on processes. So we have two major processes called the O2 tech and O3 tech, whereby we eliminate wastewater by up to 95% in our process. So on the dyeing, finishing, and garment laundry stage. Apart from this, we also are proud that 90% of our chemical inventory is DDHC compliant. And when we talk about like furthering these goals, one of our major goals is to kind of go 100% here as well.
I think that's absolutely amazing. And just listening to you, I was just making some notes and thinking that this is absolutely fantastic. Zabardast, you've already hit. I mean, we talk about the SDGs and we don't talk enough about the indicators or the targets behind the SDGs, because that's still a lot of learning around sustainability for individuals and for companies and sustainability managers. And I think, just listening to you, I'm just thinking you've already started to work on 14.2, which is protect and restore ecosystems, and 14.5 through the activities that you've done in terms of planting trees, conserve coastal and marine areas. So, out of all of the 160 plus indicators, you're already making significant impact. I'll come back to you in a moment because I want to bring you into a sort of group conversation around what some of the things that we can do. But I think it's really fantastic to hear that you've established somewhat of a baseline to understand where it is that you would like to be, and what you're doing in order to get to that perspective as well. Shayan, what's been your what have been your two milestones at Engro, and what do you see needs to happen next to elevate that particular action? And you can be as specific as you want, but I just want to get a holistic overview so that the people listening in can really get excited about ye to hum bhi kar sakte, ye hum already kar rahe hain. And then, the collective action, and then, we can start collecting information and data and stories and case studies and share that, and that becomes a catalyst and a springboard for others. So what are your two milestones that you can share? If you just mute and unmute again, I think it's not captured the voice. I think sometimes with Zoom, it just takes a little bit longer to. Yeah, bilkul.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So I was just saying that conserving marine life and enabling coastal communities to become more resilient has been a core focus area at the Engro Foundation. And our businesses, our terminal business is at the Port Qasim area. So we've been investing in the Ibrahim Hedri and Really Good communities since 2016. And working with the fisher community over there to not only enable them to learn about sustainable fishing practices, but also empowering them by giving them assets such as ice boxes and installing long line fishing gears with those communities over the past 5 years. So one big milestone that we've achieved is our intervention over the past 5 years. We have engaged with 13,000 plus fisher folk, given them trainings, giving them more awareness about marine life and how to conserve them, also empowering them with assets, training the females of the household in alternative livelihoods such as candle making, stitching, beautician courses, so that the ever vulnerable space of getting income from fishing can be substantiated and substituted by other streams of income in the community. We've also developed a fishing training center in the community where there's a longer term engagement with these people, and then also working with the youngsters and the students and taking them, giving them diving lessons and such. So these have been like the core areas where we've been collaborating with coastal communities, working with them, because we understand that Karachi is one of those cities where the coastline has been severely impacted by industrial activity, but also like other natural and man-made conditions. So we want to be there ensuring that the marine life is saved and also the communities over there are not negatively impacted by that. And
Right, that's fantastic.
talking about the future, what needs to happen next, the engagement needs to be there. It needs to be a longer term engagement. And we're also branching out into other areas. So we're about to launch a 5-year long program with WWF on conserving the population of blind Indus dolphins in the Indus River. And they're like a critically endangered species. They're on several lists of endangered species. So what we are doing with them is to ensure that that population doesn't dwindle into extinction, but is conserved and rehabilitated across the Indus River.
So again, like I said, with Haya, and the targets that they're working on, I can see in addition to those, you're also working on 14.1 and 14.7. So this is fantastic because out of all the indicators just on this, aadhe to hamare ho gaye through you guys. So that's amazing, and again, that's the point, that collective action. I mean, there doesn't need to be competition within sustainability. Companies can advance their own CSR or sustainability agendas in collaboration or independently, parallel to other organizations as well. And we all have the impact that we're doing. I'm keen to learn a little bit more about what you're doing, Shayan. So it might be a follow-up conversation that we have online, or a follow-up kind of Q&A style thing that we do on LinkedIn. There's something that I learned a number of years ago. I was visiting Ibrahim Hederi. It was for a football tournament that we were part of in advancing sustainability in the SDGs. And I came to learn from a colleague in another UN agency that micro pellets from plastic bottles, so jo pani ki bottle hum discard kar dete zameen pe, dhoop us pe aati hai. So the way the sun breaks up that plastic, they become micro pellets, which then from the wind that comes from the coastline finds its way into the oceans and the seas, and then fish ingest them. So it has an effect on the quality of fish, but the number of fish as well. And then obviously, as humans, we ingest and digest the fish, as it were, and that can have repercussions on our health and well-being. So I'm keen to understand a little bit about that, and maybe, like I say, that's a separate conversation that we do, so we can raise a little bit more awareness around that particular thing. So I'll touch base with you on that as well. Dr. Sab, what's your milestone that you've achieved? I mean, I don't even want to think about the library of things you may have achieved in your 30 plus years working in this area, but I'm keen to learn what's been perhaps one of the biggest milestones that you've achieved. And fundamentally, the one that I really want to ask you, when I learned that you were joining us, is what can we do better to implement and enforce international sea law? Because all the will in the world is great, but if it's not supported, and I use the word strongly, supported rather than enforced, if it's not supported by a strong framework of regulations and guidance, then ye sare kaam bekar ho jate hain. We can do all the efforts that we want, but it needs to be kind of like again, I use the word collective. milke kaam karna chahiye na, government, UN agencies, civil society, individuals, citizens, businesses. So share with us what your milestone, your one major milestone has been in advancing sustainability in the work that you do. And again, you'll have to unmute as well.
Sorry, before responding to your question, I think we need to realize, especially people who live along the coast in Pakistan, that sooner or later we are going to face extreme shortage of drinkable water. So we are in the next couple of years going to be heavily or might be totally dependent on seawater for our drinking purpose and for domestic consumption. So if we only consider this aspect of drinking water, we need to be aware that the amount of effluents and amount of sewage we are allowing to enter is not only making that water extremely unpleasant, but it is going to be much more expensive to turn it into a palatable water. So we need to be aware of that, and we need to convey this message to wherever we can. And the as far as the other part of the question is concerned, I would like to highlight one of my major achievements. I was director of the Pakistan Continental Shelf Program, and under that project, Pakistan maritime boundary was extended from 200 nautical miles to 350 nautical miles. So during the process of that project, I have to read different laws, maritime laws. So I'm little bit knowledgeable as far as different laws of maritime laws are concerned. And one of my, since I was retired in 2019, and since then I am working as head of the maritime department at Berry University, Karachi. So my humble effort is to raise the awareness in the maritime community about the potential challenges we might have to face, and sometimes it takes much more effort than I originally anticipated. So actually, the problem in Pakistan is that though we are bestowed with huge many resources, but our actual competition is with our terrestrial mindset. So we need to understand that we have to safeguard this. I think in 2016, I was fortunate to attend a conference in US State Department. And in that meeting, the President Obama categorically said that there is only one ocean, and that is our ocean, because all the ocean bodies are interconnected. So he said that it is extremely, it is absolutely not possible for any coastal state to act irresponsibly. So my objective and my aim at the present moment is not only to educate students about the this particular sustainability and conservation of marine resources, but also to bring this in the knowledge of some decision makers. And recently, I was fortunate to give a detailed presentation on SDG 14 and sustainability to one of the highest forum. So I'm trying to do my part of, though I'm not as energetic as I used to, but still trying hard.
No, that's interesting. Haya, I just want to move across. We've got some messages coming through, so I just want to frame it, but it prompted me to obviously just mention to you as well. So we're familiar with the Kokona 37.5 movement within the textile industry, and that's something that we need to learn a little bit more about. So again, like I said to Shayan, we'll reach out to you. Maybe we can do a blog or a case study or something around that as well, and what you're doing to drive that. But from your industry perspective, I mean, you have a significant impact on influencing, but also being influenced by your customers, right? Because you're in the textiles, garments, fashion industry effectively. And there's this notion of today's youth and tomorrow's adults who are conscious about how they purchase, social justice. Do you think, or to what extent do you think that you can find a good balance of understanding those requirements and those needs of being environmentally and socially conscious and delivering on today's customers' requirements of being ethical, environmental, mindful, progressive, having all the comforts within products, but also without it impacting your business too much? Because obviously you're an old business, right? You've been there for a number of years. And for any business, our concern at the Global Compact, working with businesses, how can we help you advance and elevate what you're doing? Because you've got infrastructure in place that is years and years old. And it's not so easy just to sort of say, paise laga do aur machine khareed lo, ya phir ye hum kar lenge. So how do you strike that balance, and how do you work with your senior leadership team to convince them or influence them or motivate them that investing in doing good, not just through CSR and sustainable practices, equipment, products, services, etc., will take time, but it has a value benefit? So the question I'm asking is, how do you strike the balance, and how do you convince people further up the chain that this is the right thing to do? And then the final point, I mean, this conversation for all of us, how do we then convey that to everyone else? How do we let people in our supply chain and our stakeholders and our employees and our colleagues know, okay, हमने decide कर लिया कि हम अब ये कर रहे हैं, अच्छे काम तो हम वैसे ही कर रहे थे, now we're going to elevate that even more. It's going to be hard work. We all need all of you to sort of, chip in, as it were. So what are your thoughts on that? Because we get asked this a lot at the Global Compact. हम हमारे seniors को किस तरह समझाएं? ये करना जरूरी है. What are your thoughts? I'm keen to listen.
Yeah. So, Zubair, actually, when we say that AFM is a leader in sustainability within the denim industry, this is not like a statement that we make lightly. And fortunately for me and the rest of my management, our top management is actually the one who's had kind of this vision from the beginning. And he is the one who kind of leads from the front and is so good at kind of like researching and like speaking with machinery suppliers, chemical suppliers to find out how we can do things better. So, for us, like you said, we're a very like old organization. We've been in operations for almost like 3 decades now. And, these are things that on some level always been a part of our company culture. It is what my grandfather instilled in my father, and he instills in us as the future company. So, like there are so many examples that I could give you. I know we're like strapped for time, but there are so many examples that I could give you from like several years ago that, we have been doing. And the funny thing is that, when you say strike that balance, I feel like our customers have woken up a little bit later to this push towards sustainability when we have already been doing it. So the only place where we lag is kind of how we talk about the things that we as a company have been doing. If that is like cotton recycling, we were one of the first companies in Pakistan to install our own cotton recycling plant in 2015. It's something that has now become like, it's like everybody's talking about, but we've been doing it since 2015. And even in terms of like this particular like SDG, like I said, my father's an avid like angler. Like, he's grown, like his pastime, his passion is to be at the sea. So he is very aware of kind of like the fishing communities. Some of his best friends are from Mubarak village. So these are things that he kind of like leads from the front and from the top.
Sure.
And this is just our company culture. And in terms of like striking a balance, like you said, like, sure, now our customers want their products to be sustainable. They want them to be certified. They want, they want the whole, like the full package. And we are fortunate enough to work with customers who are aware of it, are pushing for it, and also pay for it. So they understand the investment that it takes. They understand time that it takes to produce sustainably. And, like you said, Zubair, earlier, it's about like collaboration. Like we can't do it by ourselves. One company, one individual, we can't change these things. And I agree with Dr. Asif completely that it's so much about awareness and bringing that awareness to end customer, to our customers, and also to our workers, our employees, our supply chain. We all have to work kind of collectively and change that mindset, change the way that we work, so that we are supporting each other in this common goal.
So let me make an interjection here. I'm keen to learn Shayan's perspective, given that he's not from the same industry, but he's also not from the same structure of industry as well. So I'm going to make a suggestion here that the Global Compact can help you. And that's one of our mandates, right? We're here to help businesses. We're here as your friends, as your advocates, to help highlight the great work that you're doing, not as a form of endorsement. That's not what I'm saying here, but as a form of raising awareness for other people to understand what it is that you're doing, so they can be either inspired, they can be motivated, you can be a catalyst for others to action, or you can collaborate, because that's fundamentally, I think, where the world is headed. I've been a big fan of partnerships since I've been involved in UN circles. That's 15 plus years now. And in my area of work on sustainability is always collaborative, and collective action has far greater impact than just working by yourself. So what I'm suggesting here is, like I suggested to Shayan, maybe we could do a case study on what you're doing. You talked about cotton. I think that's a very pertinent point, given what's happening, not just on life underwater, but also climate action. So why don't we look at how we can highlight what it is that you've done and how others can benefit from that as well. So we'll talk about that as well. Shayan, what's your perspective? I mean, Haya's mentioned, obviously, for her to sort of influence upward was perhaps, I'm not saying it easy, but perhaps a little bit simpler in the process, because there was a champion already in place as the CEO who just had the vision, and then everything is bas karna hi hai. Is that the same in your industry? And is that the same when it's not a family-owned business, where you have to really convince a board and you have to convince in a different way, and there's got to be shareholders and all the other things? Is it as simple? I'm not saying that there's no vision. I'm saying, is the process simple or simpler, or is it more difficult? And what are the kind of challenges that you face? So those listening in can think, हाँ, हमारे साथ भी ये होता है, हम शायद ये करें जो शायन करे.
Sure. Thank you, Zubair. So I think before I answer that question, I would want to set some context on what the Engro Group is all about. It started off 50 odd years ago as a multinational SO chemicals, and then it has undergone several transformations. And then the entity you see today, the Engro Corporation Limited, is a parent company of multiple businesses that are in fertilizers, that are in power generation, food packaging, import export, and even we have stakes in a coal mining business. So it is a large conglomerate with a lot of stakeholders within the organization, and so it's definitely a lot more layered in terms of getting those kind of buy-ins from the management. The good thing with the Engro Group, though, is that we have historically been very rooted within the communities where we operate. So there has always been a sense of, from the first plant in Darki that we started, that we will be working in partnership with the community. So even if it takes the shape of running hospitals or schools or clinics or livelihood skills that you're giving to the community. So I think we started off even as a very traditional manufacturing setup. We always had like stronger ties to the community, and that has informed our CSR strategy over the decades. Today, though, we see a huge shift in how we want to take this forward, and we definitely want to increase beyond the localities where we operate. So the sustainability angle has really come into play now. And I think it is kind of like a push and pull kind of a thing, with this Engro Foundation, that is like a centralized CSR platform, has been doing these interventions with communities for the past 10 plus years, has now developed into an understanding at a very senior level that sustainability is a very integral form of not just CSR, but it is an integral form of doing business. So it needs to become part of your operations. It needs to become part of the way you run things.
But
Yeah.
Sorry, Shan, just on that, I mean, I think that's a very valid point that you've raised. Ke ab samajh aa gayi, and I say this respectfully, ke the light bulb moments have happened, right? People like yourself, Haya, Dr. Sab, myself, we've been knocking on the door of business leaders for so long. Kuch kare, zyada kare, CSR to ho raha hai, philanthropy ho rahi hai, but, let's go above and beyond and embed all of these actions into some form of longer term strategy. And obviously you guys know we refer to that as Agenda 2030. But yeah, has it now become really that har kisi ko samajh aa gayi hai? Do you think it's going to make jobs for people like yourself easier now that management have woken up? And Haya was talking about customers have woken up as well. So I look at the ecosystem, the only thing left is suppliers, really, right? So do you think sab jaag gaya bhi, and 2022 is really going to be a fantastic year for sustainability? Is that the right thing?
I think sab nahi jaage, but I think log jaag rahe hain. So I think it is an evolving process. It is dynamic. People are waking up. What we need to be careful, though, going forward is there's a lot of chatter around the globe about sustainable business practices, about carbon footprints, carbon emissions, all these pledges that internationally governments are making now in forums like the World Economic Forum and Davos and all. What we need to understand is that how do you bridge the gap between these verbal commitments and actions on the ground? And I think wo wali jo understanding hai of how to bridge that gap, that is still like a huge gap that we need to fill. So a lot of people understand the importance, but I don't think most people realize or are aware of the steps they need to take direct.
Yeah. I think थोड़ा सा शायद technical Shayan के साथ है. So just whilst we're waiting for Shayan to connect, if anyone has any questions, we have about 7 or 8 minutes left. कोई भी सवाल आपके है तो just put them in the chat box, and then we'll try and answer them as well. So I'm just going to build on what Shayan said. I think he's just got some connectivity issues. I think that this is a fantastic opportunity we have now. And, Shayan highlighted that it's bridge the gap time. सब अपने क्या करना है ecosystem को बेहतर करने के लिए. I think, like you said, people जाग के कुछ हद तक, but we don't know where to start. Establish a baseline. Understand where you are currently against the Sustainable Development Goals or sustainability in your organization. We have SDG Me as a toolkit. Please ask us about that. We're happy to help. Apna sustainability baseline apne bana liya. Now you know where you stand against all of the 17 SDGs, and it's very plain English, beautifully formatted so you can understand and you can explain and have those conversations internally. And then look at the key thing that I think Shayan led to is how do we elevate those ambitions into real action? And from that, once you've got your baseline, then understanding the direction that you need to take becomes far more easier. And again, we're here at the Global Compact to help guide you on that. Shayan, can you hear us? Are you back?
Yeah, really sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I think this is a perfect opportunity. You mentioned about bridging the gap, and I was just highlighting that, this is the perfect time to sort of help leadership bridge that gap. We run a couple of other webinar stroke podcasts that we launched this year as well. It's called My 2030 and Unscripted. So I'd like to invite both of your CEOs to come and talk to us for 22 minutes about where they see their vision of 2030 and what is it that they want to see happen in this wider ecosystem of suppliers, stakeholders, customers, government partners, and that will really help with bridging the gap, because now we've got more people talking about the same things with the same issues. Because when we talk to jab hum baat karte CEOs ke saath, actually they're all saying the same thing that you just said, Shayan. Samajh aa gayi hai kuch had tak. We have champions in our team. We have the Shayans and we have the Hayas and the Dr. Sabs working, and we've got support from other partners as well. But if I understood it myself, I'd really be able to sort of support more. And then decision making and action becomes really kind of like imperative to address that, but also to move it forward at the pace that the business can afford or would like. So vision setting is one thing. So those platforms are available to you guys, like I mentioned before, the case studies, the blogs, these podcasts, and obviously these webinars as well. And, we can sort of help bridge some of that gap as well. But establishing your baseline, I think, is the key in any organization. I mean, obviously you guys are doing great work, but aligning against all of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals will really kind of help set the pace that you want to take in moving from ambition to action. So I'd really recommend that as well. And our toolkit is available for everyone. We're almost out of time, and there's so much more to discuss. I mean, Shayan, I wanted to talk to you about what you're doing with fisheries and the fishing community. And there's a program that some of our colleagues in UN Environment are looking at around certification of fresh fish, so that we, holistically, then we can raise awareness around buying fish that's got, better impact on the oceans and marine life. How do we do that? Maybe that's something that we collaborate on and move forward. And Haya, you're doing great stuff on textiles, and I'm keen to learn a lot more from you, not just from life underwater, but also how we can impact climate action and health and well-being, which is goal number 3. I'm already seeing so many links from the work that you're doing. So, we'd like to have that conversation with you again as well. Dr. Saab, aapka jo 30 plus years experience, I mean, that goes without saying. I think you can have so much influence on highlighting what's worked in the past and where some of the possible risks are as well, and how we can work better with government partners in creating a more robust framework, so that whatever action that corporations like Hayas and Shayans take and individuals take, that they don't go unfettered. They're not just bas aise ho gaya. There's actually some structure and some process in that as well. We've got a couple of minutes left. And usually at the end of our sort of conversation, I ask for a moment of reflection. And the last 2 years have been very much about reflection, given with what's happening in the world. So just like you to take a moment to just reflect back on the conversation that we've just had, some of the things that you may not have had a chance to say, but would like to say, and we can, continue on that on another time. And just fast forward to 2030. So just 8 years ahead, 1st of January 2030, our subah ki chai pee rahe ya coffee pee rahe, you're on your looking out over your balcony, or you're on the beach perhaps, or you're taking a walk on the way to meeting a friend, or you're at the office. What does your 1st of January 2030 look like with everything that you've achieved as an organization, as an individual, as a person of influence, as an SDG champion? Hi, I'm going to start with you. When you look back at the last 10, 15 years, what do you see? So you'll clearly be a few more years older. You'll have a lot more achievements under your belt. You'll have seen the world. What does your 2030 look like?
Zubair, I actually just wanted to make a comment on something that you had mentioned earlier, and about reflection about our conversation as well. And it really does make me feel that to be sustainable or sustainability is kind of like a privilege. And while organizations like Engro, like Artistic, and all the individuals that are doing work on these SDGs, the awareness that we have, or the passion that we have to kind of move these goals forward, is only going to come if we have the support of the government and other organizations like yourself. And also, once we start kind of educating and creating awareness at the grassroots level in local languages and in ways that people understand. As organizations, we can do a lot of work, but to create real change and to kind of really further this goal and to change just our mindset, I feel like we need to kind of even focus on the grassroots level. Hum bahir jaate hain and we see we are taught how to dispose our waste. There's compostable waste, and then there's recycled waste, and then there's a regular trash, and all of those are kind of dealt with in their own ways that are better for the environment. And I feel like these are things that we need to kind of educate people on very simply. It's a very simple thing in their local languages, kind of create real change. In terms of us as an organization, 2030, like I said, we're already 90% compliant with the ZDHC standards. One of our massive goals is to go 100%, and also to become a zero discharge company facility. So zero liquid discharge. I would say these are kind of the two major goals that we have set for ourselves when we talk about goal 14. Even you said, there's just so much to be done, and there's so many levels and so many aspects that we can look at this from, that I feel like we need another hour just to kind of discuss and everything that we wish to do.
Well, listen, Haya, I'm happy to, on behalf of the team here, I'm happy to make that time available to you anytime you want that. That's part of our role and function here. So, aapne bas mujhe message karna hai ya Nuzhat ko, and then we'll happily, spend that time with you to better understand what you're doing, so we can give you some guidance based on our insights and expertise, so you can hit those benchmarks as well. Shayan, what does your 2030 look like?
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think 2030 is going to be an exciting year, inshallah. And as I mentioned earlier, Engro has really seriously taken this pivot towards sustainability in the past 2 years. We have been working on a sustainability strategy that cuts across all our businesses, all our locations, and I hope to see that fully implemented and thriving within our systems. There has been massive carbon footprint mapping exercises happening on plant sites, and I hope to see that by 2030, whatever data we are compiling today is instituted into a form of mechanisms and robust monitoring, and we're reporting on those, and we are meeting the targets that we've set for ourselves. We've also launched an Engro forestation, forest restoration and carbon offset project last year, which pledges to and aims to plant and protect 50,000 acres of forests across Pakistan as a means to offset our carbon emissions. And by 2030, I hope to see that the program is successfully underway and nearing completion. It's a 10-year commitment. And I would really want to see our businesses becoming and moving towards carbon neutrality in that year. So yeah, these would be some of my main aspirations for the year.
So, sounds good. And Dr. Saab, last but not least, what does your 2030 look like? I think he's disappeared. Already started on his actions. So we'll give him a moment. I'll do the wrap up. If he's able to reconnect and join us, then we'll ask him. If not, then what we'll do is we'll share what your 2030 looks like on LinkedIn as well. So I just want to say thank you for joining us today. It's been absolutely amazing learning and listening to you as well. Clearly, there's a lot of work still to do, but we knew that anyway. This is not conventional projects where you define the impact and the beneficiaries and you put some action behind it and that's it. This is a much longer term, collectively, collective both in terms of organizations, all the different departments and teams, and obviously collective with, government and counterparts, etc., to advance impact. So there's going to take some time. But I'm delighted to see the steps that you guys are taking, the investments that you're making, both in equipment, resources, and also people as well. That's important. If you don't raise awareness amongst your stakeholders, internally and externally, then kuch fayda nahi hai. And I'm delighted to see that you're open-minded enough to think, hame sab kuch nahi maloom hai. There's clearly other things that we need to learn and understand, and you're happy to take support. And like I said, we're happy to play that role. So once again, thank you for joining us. For those listening in online right now, live, thank you for listening in and thank you for all the comments that you've made in chats. And I hope we've been able to sort of incorporate all of those into our conversation. We try and keep these conversations as light as possible. It's not a Q&A, and it becomes a whole PR opportunity. This is about really understanding some of the finer detail. We'll be back next month with SDG 15 in our series. We've also got our podcast now, which we're starting to record. So if you have a CEO who's a visionary, who's really championing sustainability or is starting their journey on sustainability, then please get in touch with us here at Global Compact Network Pakistan, Tanazat, and we can get them on one of our podcasts. If you're doing great work in sustainable fashion, then please contact us. We're doing case studies on sustainable fashion. That's this quarter, so we're keen to hear about what you're doing. And if you've got any other initiatives that you want to share, then again, please drop us a line either through social media or directly, and we'll do what we can to sort of highlight some of those milestones and share that within our network, not just in Pakistan, but globally as well. Two things I just want to highlight again, ensure that you have a baseline of what you're doing on sustainability, because that will help you understand the pace and the actions that you need to take in order to achieve your vision. We have SDG Me and SDG Me Toolkit available for that. So if you need support and help from that, please do ask us. And the other thing is that whenever you are posting on social media, please do remember to copy Uniting Business and the UN Global Compact Network Pakistan. You can find us on Facebook and whatever our hashtags are. हमें भी बताएं कि आप किस और किसी को कहाँ बता रहे, so then we can make sure that we echo that as well. And for all of you champions out there doing what you are on sustainability, thank you so much for your efforts. Without you, we would not be where we are. We'd still be in a bit of a challenge. So I want to thank you on behalf of all of our colleagues here at Pakistan Network and also colleagues globally for all that you're doing to address and advance the SDGs. Once again, to our panelists today, thank you so much. Jazakallah. We'll be back in touch. I think Nuzat's going to drop you a message. Well, let's keep the conversation going. It doesn't stop here. And carry on with the great work and keep us informed with what you're doing. And we'll see everyone next month for the next in our series of In Conversation. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zubair.
Thanks, guys.